What's up, everybody? It's the Sports Leak Podcast back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak. We got Amanda back on the show as always. And Amanda, one of the craziest weeks we've seen in a long time. Unbelievable football.
I mean, there were so many close games, and I know the narrative going into this week was, oh, there's only one or two good games, but you and I predicted a lot of great matchups, even between bad teams. They were evenly matched in the games. I mean, going into Sunday night, they said it was five game-winning field goals, which was the most in NFL history. And then we had another one last night, Monday Night Football, another game-winning field goal. So the most in NFL history by two field goals. So it was a very, very close week. I had a rough week in my picks. A lot of these games were kind of upsets. I had six games wrong. Over those six games I picked wrong, only 20 points difference. Like that's
Yeah.
insanely close for the ones I got wrong.
Yeah, it's crazy. This is why we love the NFL, though, is because of the parity. And, like, the majority of people's picks, the opposite happened this week. Like, no one could have seen a lot of these upsets happening, and it was just great football to watch and sit back and have fun and enjoy. So many close games, like you said, so many that came down to the wire, field goals as time expired, and all day Sunday too. It started Sunday morning, 9:30, kickoff in Germany, and I got this game wrong. I picked the Patriots, kind of hoping that it's hard to believe that the Patriots are a 2-8 football team, but I think the biggest thing that stands out is they don't have the quarterback position right. And if Mac Jones could complete a wide open pass to a tight end, Mike Gesicki, the Patriots take the lead late in the fourth quarter of this game. Instead, he throws it right to the defender, one of the worst throws I've seen all year. I mean, Mac Jones is broken, right?
I think he's awful. I mean, we talked about this going into this week that Gardner Minshew is not a starting quarterback. And then you countered with, oh, do you think Mac's better? No, I think both quarterbacks are garbage. I
Yeah.
mean, you said going into this week that Mac would outplay Gardner. And I mean, technically he did. If you look at the numbers, look at the stats, he did outplay him. But that Colts defense really pulled through for them. And as I predicted, I think the Colts defense was the best aspect of the game between, special teams, offense, defense. I think the Colts defense was the deciding factor in this game. And I mean, it was still a close game. It was a 4-point game.
Yeah, and like I said, if Mac Jones can hit a wide open Mike Gesicki, they take a 13-10 lead. But this was an ugly, low scoring defensive battle. The German fans last week you get Dolphins Patriots this week, or Dolphins Chiefs this week, Colts Patriots, which low scoring shit show. But not only that, the defense is better in Indy, but Jonathan Taylor is better. Michael Pittman's better than anything New England really has, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, comparing the two teams, especially after this game, like there was a chance that the Pats could turn it around in this one. I mean, this is now the worst start. Well, I guess he ties his worst start in Bill Belichick history. I mean, he started 2-8 in 2000. It was his first season, but I mean, this has
Wow.
taken him way back 23 years to the last time they were this bad. But I mean, it was a messy game. Indianapolis is technically 500, but I don't see them doing anything with that 500 record. Um,
Yeah, I agree. What did you think about Mac Jones getting benched? Did you think that interception was so bad that that's why he got benched, or is it an accumulative thing? Because a lot of people were surprised that Bill Belichick, the old steady, on to Cincinnati, doesn't make any shocking moves, would bench Mac Jones in that situation. Like maybe he was just done with them.
I don't think it was just because of that one player in that one game. I think it's kind of an accumulative situation where like, all right, let's just see what Bailey's got because that's a mess. I mean, they're heading into a bye week. They're 2-8. Mac Jones passing attack. I mean, there isn't one. I know they had the tagline Mac attack in years past, but what is happening? It's bad. And
Yeah.
we saw a lot of really bad throws and non-catches this week. But that was one of the worst interceptions of the week. And I mean, it's not always his fault when they lose the game, but in this situation, like he was sacked 5 times. Maybe he was just banged up. They were trying to give him a break. I don't know, but I think he deserved to be benched based off the season. I don't know if that one play in that one game really indicated that he should be though.
Yeah, and I thought that he had made some plays in the game, rooting for the Patriots, rooting for my pick to be right. They were moving the ball down the field. They were in position to take the lead and get the big win. And it was just such a bad throw. And then they go to Bailey Zappi, and he comes in and he converts a fourth down, a third and long, and
Mhm.
then a fake spike and just throws it into triple coverage. Like, what the hell was that? Just throws the game away. I mean, I just don't understand it. And I don't see really, it's hard to see any positives in New England right now.
I mean, they did have some good moments. They were running the ball really well throughout the game. The defense played as well as they could. I mean, the Colts only put up 10, but
Hmm.
yeah, that the all-out punt rush that backfired. Like there were so many bad things that overshadowed the few glimmers of hope there. I mean, missing a 35-yard field goal.
Yeah.
They let kick returns go halfway down the field for most of the game, or punt returns. I mean, yeah.
And then how
Anything
about
good that happened was completely overshadowed.
Yeah, yeah, just and then you fall to 2-8. It's just like the season's over, and it's looking like this is the end of the Bill Belichick and Mac Jones era in New England, right? I don't see how you can bring back either of these guys. And it's just crazy that this is the year. This is finally, after all these years, this looks like it's it in New England.
Yeah, I mean, the sidelines looked like they were a mess. I mean, Bill O'Brien was ripping into Mac Jones during the game.
Right.
So it just seems like there's a lot of tension and there's gonna have to be some type of upheaval in the offseason for this team to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but credit to the Colts. They get back to 500. They're still in the mix in a very competitive AFC South, and we'll see if Gardner Minshew can keep them in the mix. But I don't think so. You don't think so. I think eventually, and let's talk about the Houston Texans, who none of us expected to be above 500, let alone the style in which they're doing it. I mean, CJ Stroud, holy shit.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Like two weeks in a row against the who did he beat last week? Who was that? That he
Uh, they played last week. I'm all focused on this week now. Give me one sec.
Yeah, I know. But incredible performance last week, which was shocking and crazy. But the fact that no one predicted him to go into Cincinnati. Oh yeah, it was the Falcons.
No,
And
the Buccaneers last week.
Oh yeah, the Bucks. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we blamed like Tampa Bay's defense, but CJ Stroud was so clutch. No one
Mhm.
thought he could do that 2 weeks in a row, and especially in Cincinnati against Joe Burrow, a red hot Bengals team on a 4-game winning streak. And this is one of the most shocking results of the weekend is that the Texans pulled this off.
Yeah, I mean that late game interception by Joe Burrow did not help matters at all.
Hmm.
But yeah, they pulled this one off. And it's interesting looking at the division because I mean it's cozy. I mean, Indianapolis right now, I know we just talked about them. They only have two opponents left who have over a 500 record right now. So for the rest of
Wow.
the season, they're playing trash teams. So if they can, sort out their defense and improve their quarterback play with these, cheap shot wins, that division, I mean, Jacksonville isn't as good as we thought they were after this week. The Texans are good. The Colts have an easy schedule. It's going to be interesting when it comes down to the wire with that division.
Yeah, I tend to think the Jags are going to end up running away with it as far as the division championship. But who knows if the Texans can keep this up? I think the Texans and Jags are the two best teams by far. I really do. I expect Indy to fall off, and we'll see if CJ Stroud can keep this up and get the Texans into the playoffs, which is crazy considering how bad the Texans have been just last year and for multiple years since Deshaun Watson left. But yeah, Joe Burrow with back-to-back bad interceptions in the fourth quarter, and then Bengals fans were actually leaving. Like they were getting up and walking out, and then CJ Stroud throws that pick and lets the Bengals back into the game. And the fans turn around and come back and are excited about a chance to win the game. But and then CJ Stroud they tie it, and then CJ Stroud goes down and has been positioned to win it, and they kick the field goal. But I mean, and me and you had talked about the Bengals being on a 4-game winning streak. Joe Burrow finally healthy, clicking on all cylinders. Is this a bad loss, do you think, for the Bengals at home?
I mean, I think it's a loss they're going to take personally.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to, change the trajectory too much, but I think, I mean, this Thursday night against the Ravens, that's going to be a must win for them coming off of
yeah,
that game. I mean,
yeah,
if they want a shot at winning the division for their third straight season, they have to beat the Ravens this week. I mean, they're 2 wins back, missed opportunity to beat the Texans. I mean, they really need to sort it out this week. And it's a short week too for them. So it'll be interesting to see how the division looks after that game this week.
yeah. I can't wait for Thursday night. That's going to be one of the like a great Thursday night matchup. We don't often get great games on Thursday night. This is going to be one of the best of the year. And yeah, the Bengals fans and even the locker room have to be shocked by this. They probably assumed like we're gonna take care of the Texans and then we have a huge matchup, and and expecting to take a 5-game winning streak into that Ravens game, and instead you lose this game, you fall to last place in a division with this loss. You're sitting at 5-4, and that puts so much pressure on this Ravens game because if you lose, then you're 5-5, and all that positive momentum that you had gained, now you're on a losing streak, right?
I think you were right during the game. You and I were talking, and you said, I think that they were looking ahead to the Ravens game. They were
Yeah,
distracted by that one coming down the line, and maybe they were, kind of overlooking the Texans a little bit. Um, so I think you hit the nail on the head with that one because that's got to be a distracting thing looming on the horizon.
yeah, absolutely. And it's easy to, yeah, to think that you're at home, you're just going to beat the Texans. CJ Stroud's not going to do that 2 weeks in a row. What are your thoughts on CJ Stroud? Clutch 2 weeks in a row. He throws that bad interception. He has 3 turnovers, but he doesn't allow that to get in his head. For a young quarterback, he seems so poised and so mentally tough to overcome turnovers and still be clutch. And I see a lot of things in CJ Stroud that I really like going forward that he can develop into an absolute star in this league. Do you agree?
I do agree. I mean, as much as it pains me to talk and say positive things about a quarterback from Ohio State, he's amazing. And some of the connections he has with his receivers, Noah Brown, we never heard his
Yeah.
name much when he was in Dallas. Now he's playing there. I mean, he had a career high 172 receiving yards on 7 receptions. Last week, he set his last previous high, which was 153. I mean, he just joined CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, and Justin Jefferson as the only players with back-to-back 150 plus receiving yards. I mean,
Damn.
he's killing it this season with them. Like I don't think anyone would have guessed that name would be being tossed around in the top 5 receivers on the season with those other 3 players.
Yeah. Yeah, he's absolutely killing it. And I love that CJ Stroud doesn't just focus on one guy. He's got Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, right? He spreads the ball around and you know, he uses it to his advantage. So great to see. I'm rooting for this Texans team. And yeah, talking about Cincy, they're in a rut, and Thursday night is going to be a lot of fun because that's an absolute must win for that team. It's going to be fun to see how they respond to their backs against the wall.
Yeah, I mean, it was great to see this week. I mean, Jamar Chase, he had that back injury earlier in the week, so we were worried whether or not he would play. He still had 5 catches out of his 6 targets, 124 yards, a touchdown. So as long as he's fully healthy, I think we'll continue to see great things out of that offense. Pretty concerned about the pass defense, though. It was
Yeah.
I mean, they had some moments there in the fourth quarter. They got that interception, which was good. But for most of the game, I mean, Cincinnati's pass defense struggled. They gave up 356 yards to CJ Stroud, and they cannot do that against the Ravens.
No, absolutely not. And you're going to have a pissed off Ravens team as well, and we'll talk about them here in a second. How about the Vikings? They're red hot right now, huh?
Yeah, I mean this one I picked wrong. This was my biggest deficit of the week that I got wrong. The Saints had a really rough game, and I'm not quite sure what happened with them there, but I will say Joshua Dobbs is playing amazing. I think we kind of thought he would fall off a little bit after week one, but
Hmm.
maybe it was rookie luck, first time on the team. But he's great. There's nothing bad I can say about him. He only attempted 4 quick passes on the day. He went 3 of 4 on those. He finished 20 of 30 of his passes for completions. I mean, he was great. He wasn't holding the ball too long. He was finding his targets. Minnesota quietly now has the longest active win streak in the NFL, 5 games. All of them since Justin Jefferson went out too. So
It's
maybe we have to take
incredible.
them seriously. I don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I thought Josh Dobbs that first game was a fluke, right? Like he comes in, the defense game plan for the rookie, whoever that guy was. And Dobbs, you know, Dobbs comes in, surprises him, shakes off a couple tackles, uses his legs, catches him not ready, and he's able to beat him. This week, I thought the Saints were going to be game planned and ready for Josh Dobbs. He wasn't going to perform another miracle. And to me, this goes back to who I think the Saints are. Right? Is they're so inconsistent. They're one week they're solid, the next week they're trash, and they're a roller coaster and they have to get that figured out. And they actually looked better once Derek Carr went out. Luckily, Derek Carr didn't suffer any major injury to his throwing arm, and he took a concussion. But the good news for the Saints is they're going into their bye week, so Carr should be able to get back healthy for their next game. Jameis Winston actually came in and provided a spark, a couple of touchdowns and 2-point conversions, got it back to a one-score game. But all the credit goes to Josh Dobbs and the Vikings. They built a 27-3 lead, absolutely blowing them out, and then we're able to hang on. 5 straight wins. You can't talk shit about 5 straight wins. That's huge.
No, especially
And,
when their last 3 games have had a different starting quarterback at the start of each one.
yeah,
I mean, shout out to the Vikings coaching staff. They are next man upping like I've never seen before. They are figuring out how to pull off the wins with injury after injury to that quarterback room. And they're impressive. They're doing great. Um, one question I had about this game, I mean, in previous weeks, we've seen some amazing things from Saints Taysom Hill. Where was he?
yeah.
He's
I don't
healthy.
know.
He's had 5 touchdowns in the last 3 games. And then this week he had 1 carry for 6 yards. No passing attempts, 2 receptions, 17 yards. Like he barely I don't know what happened. It didn't seem like he was in that thick of coverage. I don't know if there was a coaching issue or if he, is sick and they just didn't say anything. He wasn't feeling well. But it was very strange to see him go from being such a breakout, having an amazing performance last week, and then barely anything this week.
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of Dennis Allen, their head coach, right? Like, I don't think he's the greatest coach in the league, and I think he's part of the reason there's such a roller coaster and so up and down. And uh, um, they fall to 5-5. They're still in first place in that division, but what's your gut right now? Like the Saints are in first place, the Bucks are a half a game back, and the Falcons are a full game back. They're all huddled together right there, competing for the division. What's your gut right now on who takes that division?
I'm gonna go Tampa Bay for now because I feel like they want it more. I don't know what's going on with the Saints, but they just don't seem passionate about winning. And
Hmm.
the Falcons can, string together a couple of wins here or there, but I just don't think they have like I don't think their team is fully formed enough to pull off the division this year.
Yeah, yep. And Atlanta, neither of us trust Atlanta.
No.
Uh, so I agree. I'm rooting for the Saints because that was my preseason pick, but also I won't be mad if Tampa Bay does it. And I like Tampa Bay as well. The Saints sign defensive end Jason Pierre-Paul this week, 94.5 career sacks. So we'll see if he can provide anything with his 7.5 fingers. But Minnesota, the Vikings with this 5 game winning streak, and this was why I was rooting for the Chargers so hard later in the day, is because if the Lions had lost, the division would have been a half a game separating the Vikings from the Lions. It's still a game and a half, but Minnesota's really gaining ground there. Do you think the Vikings with Josh Dobbs, credit to Brian Flores and that defense is playing so much better? Any chance the Vikings can get up in there? They're going to play 2 games against the Lions still this season. What are your thoughts on the NFC North? Is it still the Lions division to win, or is Minnesota still in this?
I mean, I don't know if you've looked at their schedules. Do you see the dates that they play each other?
Yeah, like week 16 and week 18.
It's so funny that they're back to back. I I mean, it's interesting because they get to play the Broncos next, whether get to or have to, personal opinion there. But I mean, the Broncos have knocked off 2 teams recently. So I think it'll kind of the next game will kind of show, who's for real of those 2 teams. Because I mean, we have the Vikings sitting at 6-4 and the Broncos who are 4-5, but I mean, they just knocked off the Chiefs and the Bills.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of stoked for that game on the 19th just to see like what happens there because I don't know if I can take either one of these teams seriously yet, which is weird because one is on a 5 game win streak and one of them just knocked out or back to back weeks they knocked off, AFC contenders. So it's weird that I still have my doubts about these teams. So I'm very intrigued to see how that game plays out next week.
Yeah, I think like I have questions about both these teams too, and you're right. It's a big game to see who's for real. I don't see any reason why the Vikings shouldn't keep this up. I really don't. Like they're a good team, and so I'm gonna be keeping a close eye on the Vikings going forward. And being the Lions hater that I am, I'm kind of rooting for it.
Yeah. I mean, they've got a weird schedule. So they go to the Broncos and then the Bears come to town. Then they go to the Raiders, have to play the Bengals, and we'll see where they're at in week 15. And then Lions and then Lions. So I think it's going to come down to week 18 for the division, and that'll be a great game.
I see no reason why the Vikings can't take at least one of those, like at home or whatever against the Lions. Um, That's going to be very interesting. The Packers are sandwiched in there as well in week 17. But
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Bengals, Raiders, I mean, Broncos is a tough one.
Yeah.
Vikings at Broncos is going to be a lot of fun coming up here in week 11.
Well, I was counting the Packers game as a win for the Vikings.
You didn't
So
want to talk
we just
about
skipped
that
over
one,
that
did
one. But I mean, playing the same team 2 weeks apart is always challenging.
Yeah,
Because, yeah, you know how they work, but they know how you work. And then losing home field advantage. So it'll be interesting. But I mean, speaking about that division, you and I both picked the Packers game correctly. And one thing that's been very frustrating, the Packers go to Pittsburgh, they lose 19-23, but I had thought that the game would be much more handled by the
hmm
Steelers. It's very annoying being a Packers fan this year because like they can't just lose. They have to, tie it or take the lead or make it seem like there's hope. And it comes down to, needing a touchdown, the end of the game in the red zone, and then Jordan Love throws a pick. That's
yeah.
getting real old. We've seen that storyline 3 separate games this season, and I'm starting to get I'm ready to quit watching Packers games. I mean, we've seen this story. It's happened 3 times so far, and I mean, I don't know what's going on in Green Bay. We have our wide receiver one, who's ranked 39th in the NFL for wide receivers.
Yeah, Christian Watson's really underperforming.
I
They
mean,
had
there's
high
32
hopes for
teams.
him. Yeah.
How is your number one seventh? I mean, seventh out of the first
Well,
round. It's insane.
and we talked about this all off season, all season long to this point that the Packers should have brought in a veteran, right? Someone reliable. So many young. you look at the top target getters, the top guys that Jordan Love is throwing to, they're all rookies or at least second year guys. Like there's no, and Jordan Love is not without flaws. Like he's turning the ball over at times, especially late, and that's very frustrating. But you know,
I mean,
they're not.
Christian Watson only catching 42% of his targets this season.
Yeah, that's really
That's
bad.
insane.
Yeah.
And I mean, the
Uh,
team is young. We didn't count this year as anything. We had no expectations. The fact that they, keep tying it or taking the lead and then losing it at the last minute is frustrating. I would have been fine with 2 wins this season and like a rebuild year, but we have the youngest team in the NFL. So, it's fine, I guess, but stop giving me hope. Can you just lose it? Like just stop putting up points and pretending like you're gonna come back in it and then lose at the last minute. That's my request.
yeah, it's frustrating when it's a close game, right? And then you
Mm.
find a way to lose it. In Pittsburgh is always tough, and the Steelers are a decent team, and that me and you didn't have much confidence in the Packers in this game, and yeah, it's got to be frustrating when it feels like if you can just make one play here, one play there, you can pull off the win, and you can't quite get it done.
Well,
But I
uh,
think go
go ahead.
ahead.
I was just going to say,
Well,
speaking of quarterbacks in this game, I mean,
yeah,
I thought we would see Kenny Pickett playing better this second year.
yeah,
I mean, he's still so inconsistent. I mean, he was 14 of 23 passes completed for 126 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, there were a couple drops by his receivers. Deontay Johnson, critical drop early in the fourth, best thrown ball of the game, and he just didn't grab it. It was a great break for the Packers there, but I mean, so many incompletions in this game I mean, he had wide open receivers and just wasn't throwing the ball properly. And I mean, the running backs kind of handled the game for the Steelers, but I just thought Kenny Pickett would be more advanced at this point.
yeah. I was never a big Kenny Pickett guy, and I still am not. It's borderline between him and Mitch Trubisky. It really is. I don't have a lot of confidence in him. The only confidence I have in Pittsburgh is really their running game and their defense. And as long as Kenny Pickett doesn't turn the ball over, you've got a shot. But you can't expect him to do much, and this is why I think the Steelers are the worst team in that division. I know they're in the mix at 6-3, but I think that they're a worse team than their record indicates. They easily could have lost this game, right? And we don't think that the Packers are that good of a team, so they played down to their competition. And if T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith and the defense doesn't carry the team, then I don't have much faith in the Steelers team, and that's just I agree. I'm not a big Kenny Pickett guy. I think they should look to upgrade.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's one thing to have these issues your rookie season, but now when there are kids playing who, just started game 2, 3, 4, and they're clutch and winning games and red hot right now, like you're a sophomore player now. You should have worked out these kinks.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, the Steelers, we'll see if they can keep proving us wrong. They're 6-3, and in a tough division and right in the thick of things. So we'll see what happens, but I don't have much faith in them. Speaking of not having much faith, the Bucks were on a 4-game losing streak and pissed off about the way they lost that game to the Texans, and it was really the defense that took a lot of that heat for allowing C.J. Stroud and the Texans to put up as many yards and as many points on them as they did, and especially in the clutch. And
I
I
know.
thought they rebounded nicely against Will Levis, who had looked good to this point, and they hold him to just 6 points and win easily, 20-6. How impressed were you with Tampa Bay bouncing back and getting a much needed win in Week 10?
I mean, I was glad to see it. I think the Buccaneers are better than their record. I think they've lost some games in some very frustrating ways. So I was
Hmm.
really glad to see him pop back into this one. I think that they need to continue with that streak. I mean, they had some great play in this. I mean, Mike Evans did great. 6 catches, 143 yards. Marked his 18th game since 2014 with over 120 receiving yards and a touchdown.
Nice.
Fourth most of any receiver in the last 9 years. So, I mean, he's clicking really well with Baker. I think they're doing well. But I think that defense is really what's lighting them up. I mean, they sacked Levis 4 times, 9 tackles for loss. So I think the defense is really kind of like providing the fire to get that offense going.
Yeah, and shout out to your boy Baker. Like he's playing pretty well this year. A lot of people wrote him off after things didn't work out in Cleveland, and then he struggled in Carolina. But he's having a good year. Even when they lose, no one's pointing the finger at Baker saying you suck, you don't have it anymore. If anything, it's been the defense. So Baker is playing consistently well. He's feeding Mike Evans. Rashad White has been a nice bright spot on that offense. And if the defense can play to their potential and be a complete team that way, there's no reason why the Bucks can't dig themselves out of this hole and win the division. 500 is leading that division. There's no reason why the Bucks can't go 9-8, 10-7, and get into the playoffs and even host a playoff game. So I'm rooting for it, and Baker is proving a lot of people wrong this year.
Yeah, I'm glad to see it too, because I've been a big fan of Baker for years. But on
Hmm.
the other side of the ball, I've harped on this for the past 4 weeks. The Titans, even when they win a game, their red zone offense is garbage. And
Yeah.
they're still pulling off wins, but I mean, this week they couldn't do it. They scored touchdowns on only 34% of their red zone visits this season.
Yeah. I just don't. And where's Derrick Henry in those situations, right?
I
Like,
have no idea why they aren't running it there.
yeah, exactly. Run it 4 times in a row if you have to. Like, chances are the defense isn't going to stop King Henry 4 times in a row.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, they're wasting so much talent on that team. And then, I mean, the secondary is a mess too. The wide receivers for the Bucks were running all over them. So they
mhm.
definitely have some kinks to work out.
It doesn't help when you trade away Kevin Byard to the Eagles,
No, it
and
does not.
so I think it's going to be a long year for the Titans. They're last place, or no, yeah, last place in that division.
Yep, three and
And
six.
huh?
I said, yeah, they're sitting at 3 and 6 behind India at 500.
Yeah, and I don't see them bouncing back. Will Levis has shown some nice bright spots at times, but I don't think that they're a very good team. And I think the wheels could come off pretty quickly, and I could see them finishing 6-11 or something like that, 5-12, and starting the rebuild over there. And I think this is very likely the last year for Derrick Henry in Tennessee. So it'll be interesting to see if Derrick Henry signs with a contender or what happens with him.
Yeah, I hope he does. He deserves to be on a winning team.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you just talked about their wheels coming off. So coming into this week, the 49ers were on a 3-game skid. The Jags were on a 5-game win streak. You and I both picked the Niners on this one. And I
Hmm.
saw a lot of people saying it was going to be a super close game. Jacksonville could maybe pull it off. The Niners are on a skid. We knew exactly what would happen in this game. And we thought it would be a closer game than this, but we knew the Niners were going to come in pissed off and the Jags would be a little full of themselves. And I mean, we nailed that pick. 34-3 in Jacksonville. That had to be embarrassing.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit frustrated that the Jags couldn't put up a better performance, but this kind of goes to show like how good the Niners can be when they're playing at their best. And they were pissed off, and Debo Samuel's back. It was the Chase Young debut, and how about that D line with Chase Young on one side, Nick Bosa on the other? That this could be an indication of just how scary they are, right? And how do you defend that? How do you block that? How do you protect your quarterback with those dudes coming off the edge?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough defense, but you have to do more than 3 points.
Yeah,
They got to
And
sort it out somehow. I mean, that offense was a mess. I mean, it was supposed to have a step forward in coaching, Doug Peterson's second season, and we haven't seen it. Um, I don't really know what's going on. Pass protection is a mess. The defense has mostly carried the season so far, but that did not happen this week.
well, I'm not too. I'm even though that result looks bad and the game looks bad and they got their doors blown off. I'm not down on the Jags. I still trust this team. I think that they win the division easily. I think they're one of the most talented teams in the league. I think they host a playoff game and they have the potential. This is a playoff. This is a team built for the playoffs, in my opinion. Like Trevor Lawrence is having his ups and downs during the regular season, but I saw what they did against the Chargers last year, coming back from a big deficit to win that playoff game, and they were close against Kansas City as well. I still believe this Jags team is a divisional round, if not conference championship level team. I'm not too worried about this Jags team. They played a bad game, but that can happen to anybody. And I think the 49ers were so pissed off and so ready to dominate. It didn't matter who they were playing against, they were going to blow the doors off.
Yeah, I agree. They definitely have some kinks to work out though if they want to make it far in the postseason. How do
Yeah.
you feel about Tank Bigsby? I mean, they've got this rookie running back who has now been responsible for 4 turnovers this season. Do you think
Yeah.
he stays on the team? Do you think they keep him around?
I think they can be patient with him, but I would give him a little bit less touches, right? If he keeps turning the ball over, like Travis Etienne is having a career year. He's balling. Like, stop giving the ball to Bigsby and feed Etienne. And I mean, they had a wide receiver who was the wide receiver? Christian Kirk had a big fumble loss in the red zone as well.
Mhm.
The Jags need to clean some things up, especially turnover wise. But if they do, they'll be fine. Uh, yeah, I would stop giving the ball to Tank Bigsby as often, especially in big games. I trust ETN a whole lot better, and you know, I'm not. I like both of these teams. I think both of these teams are capable of deep playoff runs, so I'm not too concerned with this result.
Yeah, my favorite part of the game was when Coach Kyle Shanahan for the 49ers got flagged for getting a little too feisty on the sidelines over that would-be fumble return for a touchdown. It was the coach and 2 rookies. Obviously it didn't affect the outcome of the game at all, but I love a fired up coach, man. Get in there, defend your kids. It was good to see. Um,
Real quick, what did you think about? So they were trying to get Christian McCaffrey to break the record for consecutive games with a touchdown in a blowout, right? And Christian McCaffrey's coming off an injury. To me, I wouldn't give a shit about that streak at all. Like the most important part, the game is done. You're blowing this team out. Why are you risking injury to Christian McCaffrey over a streak that really is meaningless? I would rather have McCaffrey healthy for the stretch run here this season than trying to force feed him the ball in a blowout.
I mean, do you think that was the coaching staff saying, "Hey, the team needs this," or do you think they were like, "Hey, McCaffrey really wants this. Like, if we can make it work, let's do it. But like, let's make sure he's being careful." Because I have a feeling that
Yeah,
was a personal thing. I mean, he's now tied with the record for the longest streak in league history with Lenny Moore. But I mean, that was back in 63, 64. Like, as a competitor, as an athlete in his head, he wanted that. He wanted to hold it. Now he's just tied for first place. I think it was McCaffrey, pushing on that. I mean, it was the first time since week 11 of last season he didn't score a touchdown. That's
yeah.
a long streak to break. So I feel like that was a personal thing and the coaches were trying to help him out to reach that personal goal because that's not going on the team record. Like that's his personal scoreboard. So I feel like they were just trying to help their guy out.
I get it, but I would have been like, Christian, let's think big picture here. Like, and the good news is he didn't get hurt. The bad news is he didn't get the touchdown. But um, I just think, I get it. I get it from both sides. But imagine if he had gotten hurt trying to break a streak like that, right?
Yeah, but I mean, one more play, one more run isn't going to hurt him. Like you say, let's think big picture here. I mean, Lenny Moore, who is that? What team did he play for?
Who knows?
My point, but he's held the record for 59 years. So big picture, having a record for the next 60 years, I think is, a bit more important in that situation for him. As someone who's very competitive, I can absolutely understand where his mind was.
Big picture, let's go get a Super Bowl and not worry about that. But
Yeah,
I see both sides.
both,
You
both.
know,
I get it. I get both sides.
yeah,
So, moving on to a game that we knew would be great. I mean, they had said that the 49ers Jags was the game of the week. Obviously that didn't pan out. But what actually was the game of the week? The Browns come into Baltimore, pull off a 33-31 win. What were your thoughts on this one? Because we had both said last week, like, yeah, we're picking the Ravens because they're the safer bet, but we're both gonna root for the Browns. So I love this game. I don't care if I'm wrong. The Browns pulled it off. It was beautiful. What were your thoughts?
yeah. I absolutely love this game. Um, and it looked like early on Baltimore was going to run away with this thing. And Watson playing through an ankle injury, he was obviously hurting and gutting it out and kind of limping on it in the first half. And I was worried that he wasn't going to return in the second half. It was going to be Dorian Thompson Robinson or PJ Walker. And, the game would get away and it'd be a blowout. But credit to Watson. He stayed in there, he played through it. And had an incredible second half. Watson 14 of 14 for 134 yards, a touchdown, and the game-winning drive in the second half. After playing through that ankle injury, the Browns scored the final 16 points to absolutely stun the Ravens. The Ravens had this game in the bag, and this is starting to be a problem for a while now here in Baltimore. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's John Harbaugh or what, but the Ravens have the best point differential in the NFL in the first quarter and the sixth worst point differential in the fourth quarter. They keep finding ways to blow games, going back to last year, going back to 2 years ago. And they need, if they're going to be a contender, they have to figure out ways to finish these games. This is a huge opportunity for the Ravens to get to 8-2 to solidify their lead in the division, and they blew a big opportunity. Credit to the Browns, but it makes me question and worry a little bit about the Ravens.
Yeah, and the Browns have, they're 6-3 now. They have a half game to make up on the Ravens, and the
Yeah,
Ravens schedule is way more challenging moving forward. So I mean, it's going to be a tight division, and I cannot wait. It's you know that AFC race is so competitive. There's so many good teams in the AFC. I'm going to be stoked with how the season wraps up just watching it. This game made me nervous though, because I thought the Browns could maybe come back, and then they got the interception touchdown. Greg Newsome ran that in, and then they missed the extra point. So then it was
yeah.
30-31. It would have fucking tied it up. So then I was pissed off. And then, the defense handled business. 6 plays held the Baltimore to a punt. And then that field goal, I mean, they burned up the clock for 5 minutes and just settled for the field goal and won the game. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I loved it, and people need to get off of Deshaun Watson's nuts a little bit here. Like they need to cut him some slack. Like honestly, this is probably the best quarterback the Browns have had since like forever. And national media, the local media, the fans, we talk about this every week, hating on Deshaun Watson while he's hurt, like an injury to his throwing shoulder. Like that's going to affect any quarterback. That's going to affect Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Joe Burrow, Mahomes. And not only that, but playing through an ankle injury, having the second half that he had, a huge road divisional win, and now you're just a half a game back. Let's give Deshaun Watson some credit. Let's have some patience here and see what these Browns can do. They're the best defense in football, and if the quarterback can stay healthy, there's no telling what this Browns team can do. You get into the playoffs with the best defense and a quarterback like Watson, who knows? And I'm tired of all this. even on Sunday, all this negative talk about Deshaun Watson, especially in the first half, I'm so happy that he played the way he did in the second half and got the win because I'm tired of the shit talk, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the Cleveland way is to blame everything on the quarterback. And I mean, the way he started the game, pick six on the opening drive,
Yeah.
6 of 20 passes completed in the first half. Like the second half is one of the defining moments of his career. That was beautiful.
Hmm.
So I'm really glad he was able to make up for it. But Cleveland is just so fair weather with how they treat their quarterbacks. Everything is
Yeah.
their fault. And we've talked about this a couple times over the past few weeks. I mean, when Baker was there, didn't matter if a defense lost the game. If the defense let him put up 70 points, it was still Baker Mayfield's fault.
Yeah. Absolutely. But, you know, playing like this is a way to shut everybody up. So I'm happy for Deshaun Watson, and you keep finding ways to win games, and you win the division and host a playoff game or get into the playoffs and play well in the playoffs. Everyone's going to come around. People aren't going to be able to talk shit if you're winning playoff games. So I've been a Deshaun Watson fan since Clemson. I liked him with the Texans. You know, people forget he was up 24 to nothing in the divisional round on the Mahomes and Kelsey and Tyreek Hill Chiefs. He's capable. So if he can get healthy, stay healthy, ride this number one defense, this Browns team can be an absolute threat come January. So huge win. Uh, it doesn't get any easier. They host the Steelers in Week 11. Prove it again. Beat the Steelers, and let's keep this ball rolling, Cleveland.
Yeah, I'll be excited to see how they do next week.
And then for the Ravens, real quick, they fall to 7-3. A huge Thursday night game against the Bengals, and you got two teams that are coming off losses that they feel like are missed opportunities, games they should have won. Thursday night is going to be so much fun, and neither of these two teams can afford a loss. Either, you know, two teams that are capable of going to the Super Bowl, to the AFC Championship game, and they could be on 2-game losing streaks if they don't get it done on Thursday night.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the injury report comes out. Marlon Humphrey, the cornerback for the Ravens, and
Yeah,
left tackle Ronnie Stanley both left the game and didn't return. I haven't seen an update on either one of those. So I mean, they're both Pro Bowl players, so I can see the Ravens being a little stressed out without them on the field if they don't get to play.
yeah, yep. Um, so we talked about the Falcons at the Cardinals with Kyler Murray making his first start since the torn ACL. And we both picked the Falcons here. The Cardinals are a bad team, and we kind of expected a growing process for Kyler Murray after that injury. But to his credit, Kyler Murray looked great. He balled out. He looked healthy. The athleticism was there. He was making the throws. He seemed to have a good chemistry with tight end Trey McBride. And the Falcons still suck, but a huge win for the Cardinals. And we'll see with Kyler Murray out there what they can do. But big win, nice performance for Kyler Murray. Nice to see him back and looking, like the old Kyler Murray post injury.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you expect someone coming back from an injury like that to, have a rusty game. I think they've
Yeah,
been waiting to put him in. I
yeah,
think you were right when you said that they're not going to start him in a tougher game. They're going to wait till a weaker game comes up to make sure he doesn't, take too many hard hits and make sure he's safe. Because obviously they're not winning the division. They're not winning anything this season with that record. So I think maybe he's been ready to play for a few weeks, which is why he looks so good because he did not look like a player who hasn't played in 11 months. He
yeah.
is fully healthy. So I think maybe they postponed his return a little bit. But what's interesting in this game, both he and Clayton Tune scored a rushing touchdown, which marks the first time the Cardinals have had two quarterbacks, two rushing touchdowns since the Chicago Cardinals beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 9 of 1956.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a long time ago because you don't see that stat very often, and uh, That's cool. And I mean, they didn't need to go to Clayton Tune either. He came in for like what, a quarterback sneak or something? Like,
Yeah, yeah. I think they were like, "Oh, we need somebody to run. We're gonna protect Kyler. Throw the kid in.
yeah.
We don't care about him. Throw him in." I thought it was funny that they did that too. They're like, we're worried it won't work. We don't want it to be Kyler's fault."
Yeah.
So
That's
we know who their special boy is.
absolutely. And you see it. I mean, he's talented.
Oh, he
Like,
is absolutely.
yeah. And there was a lot of talk about them tanking for Caleb Williams. I mean, when you got Kyler Murray, you can do a lot worse than him. And it's an interesting spot the Cardinals are in because if you put Kyler Murray back out there for the rest of the season, you're going to win some games just because of his talent alone. So, are they tanking or for a quarterback, or are they putting Kyler in and trying to win some games? Like the Cardinals are kind of confusing with that. Um, I don't know, but Kyler Murray's definitely still got a lot of talent left in him.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. And then on the other side of the ball, I mean, speaking of quarterbacks, earlier this week, their coach, Arthur Smith, said, "No, I don't plan to bounce back and forth between quarterbacks. Taylor Heinicke's our guy right now. Like they benched Desmond Ritter finally." But then he had that hamstring injury in the fourth. So
Mm-hmm.
Desmond Ritter had to come back in. I mean, he led the Falcons to a go-ahead touchdown. Um, and Heineke was struggling all day. So it'll be interesting to see how the injury plays out and what the quarterback situation looks like moving forward for them. But what's great is, I mean, Bijan Robinson has had some complaints about how he's not getting enough carries and he felt underutilized. He got out there and he had so many great runs this week. So I think they're going to be able to rely on that running game a bit more, and they might actually utilize him to his potential.
Yeah,
So that should take some pressure off the quarterback position for sure.
yeah, as they should. I mean, can they start Bijan Robinson at quarterback? Because he will probably play better than these two have. That's what's holding Atlanta back. Like they don't have two quarterbacks; they have no quarterbacks. We expected more from Taylor Henneke, being a veteran. We saw some positives from him with the Commanders. Uh, Desmond Ritter had potential, but I was never a big fan of him. If Ritter is going to score, it's going to be a rushing touchdown. It's not going to be a passing one. And they have no quarterback. I don't trust either of these guys. They don't trust either of them. And honestly, can you plug Bijan, like start Bijan Robinson at quarterback and see what he can do? Because they don't have a quarterback, and they're
Can't
not.
be worse.
Yeah, and I don't see them winning the division or making the playoffs. That's the big elephant in the room in Atlanta is get a quarterback because I don't think either of these guys is it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, if they can't decide which one they want to start more, like obviously neither one of them is the guy.
Yeah. So, but good win for the Cardinals, and yeah, if you're the Falcons, you can't beat the Cardinals. Like, just pack it in at this point.
Yeah. Speaking of not being able to beat people, I improved my lead on our picks that we differed on to 4 this week, doubled it up, because you were convinced the Chargers would pull off a win at home versus the Lions. The Lions pulled it off 41-38. It was a great game, a lot of back and forth, nice, great shootout kind of game. Like we had a couple great defensive matches this week. This was all offense, and it was so fun to watch. How are you feeling about this one? I know you were kind of hoping Minnesota and Detroit had a closer fight moving forward, but I've been on the Lions all season, and for me as a Packers fan, it's weird to be pulling for the Lions, but I mean their record and I are matched up right now. I've been picking their games pretty accurately all season. So how are you feeling about this one?
Well, so this was a great game to watch. It was fun back and forth, and I had a tweet that kind of went viral little bit talking about how look at this Chargers defense. You've got Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, uh, that linebacker Kenneth. I can't think of his last. Kenneth Murray. You got Derwin James. You got Asante Samuel Jr. Loaded defense. Yeah, you can't stop anybody, and you allow 41 points here. How does Brandon Staley, a defensive coach, keep getting brought back year after year after year, and that defense be so bad? And on top of that, let me ask you, how are you feeling about this Lions defense? Because the Lions, I don't think the Chargers are that good of a team. They have some talent offensively, but are you worried at all about this Lions defense after that game?
I mean, yeah, they've been a offensive team all season. I have had questions with the
Yeah.
defense, but I mean, if you can put up 40 points against a team, most of the time you can pull off the win. But I think the defense is going to be what, knocks them out in the playoffs. But we've had conversations about this running game all season, and I've liked Jahmyr Gibbs. You've talked about David Montgomery. I was just about to talk shit to you during the game about how Jahmyr Gibbs was having a great day and Montgomery wasn't doing anything, and then he broke off for a 75-yard touchdown. I was like, well,
Yeah.
fucking never mind. But yeah, the Lions, I think they're pulling together. Dan Campbell's done some great things for this team, but it seems like they're very one-sided. I would say 75% of their focus has been on offense, which is great. But if they want to survive the postseason and win any postseason games, they need to bulk up that defense and start clicking. Because I mean, yeah, you won a game, but you still let the other team put up 38 points. That's not gonna work when you're playing in the postseason.
Yeah, I know I've been a Lions hater all year, and I'll say this, I love their running back duo. Like whether you like Jahmyr Gibbs or whether you like David Montgomery, shit, like them both, right?
Yeah.
Like this is a hell of a 1-2 combo. They have a very solid offensive line. They're running behind Penei Sewell, who is just moving people out of the way. To his credit, Jared Goff is continuing to uh, overperform. Like
Hmm.
Goff was really bad at the end there in LA and his first year in Detroit. He's been playing a lot better. They got a Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. Those guys are getting it done. But I just don't think it's sustainable. I don't. How many times did they have to convert fourth down? And I know they like to go for it and they got it done. But at the end of the day, when you go up against a tougher teams like the Ravens, like the Vikings defense, right? You're going to have to play the Vikings defense twice. I think you're going to trip up against the Vikings, against the Cowboys defense, right? Even against the Broncos coming up. The Broncos are playing better defense. I don't see this being sustainable in Detroit. Unless you can run the ball all over these guys, I don't think you're going to convert all these fourth downs against better defenses. And so if the Lions defense doesn't step up and play better, I agree with you. They might make the playoffs, but I don't see them going far into the playoffs. And
Yeah, I think
yeah,
this
go ahead.
game was very like these teams are very similar.
Yeah,
Like on defense, they have a lot of individual talent, but the defenses aren't clicking. I mean, look at you mentioned the players on the Chargers defense. I mean, the Lions have Aiden Hutchinson, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch last year had an amazing
yeah,
season. Cam Sutton, CJ Gardner Johnson. I mean, they have so much individual talent. And granted, CJ Gardner Johnson is out right now. But the hope is that he'll be back for the postseason. Um,
yeah, they need him back.
yeah, but I mean, individually, those are some amazing players. But then as a whole, like they're not they don't look like that. You wouldn't expect all those players to be on that team and then them to be not performing like they are. I mean,
Yeah,
and it's interesting too, because like, yeah, their defense is ninth in the league. But when you compare their rushing defense versus passing defense, I mean, they're third on the ground, which is great, but then 21st for passing. So that secondary really needs to sort its issues out on both teams. I mean, I
yeah.
think these teams are gonna, pull off divisional wins and then get knocked out in the playoffs because their defense isn't going to be able to stop actual contenders.
I mean, I'm not high on the Chargers either. Like this, me picking the Chargers wasn't some vote of confidence on the Chargers at all. I don't think the Chargers make the playoffs. I think they got lucky to make the playoffs last year, and here come the Broncos and here come the Raiders sneakily. I know they got a rookie quarterback, but the Raiders, are on a winning streak, and I don't hold the Chargers up high at all. And so for the Lions to struggle and need all these fourth down conversions and need a game-winning field goal as time expires just to beat them isn't a vote of confidence for the Lions either. I know they're 7-2. They're playing, they're feeling confident as hell, right, for the Lions. But and then they play the Bears and the Packers the next 2 weeks. So there's no reason why the Lions can't be 9-2. But I just don't feel like they're elite. I feel like the Eagles and 49ers are head and shoulders above them. And come playoff time, this is a flawed team. I know it's going to be, I keep talking about the negatives, right? They're going to host a playoff game likely, as long as they take care of business, especially with the Vikings. A home playoff game in Detroit is going to be special, all that. But are they Super Bowl contenders like the national media keeps saying? Absolutely not. I mean, who was it calling this game? Tony Romo said, "Oh, this team is for sure a Super Bowl contender." Get the hell out of here with this shit. That they're doing a disservice to the Lions fans by talking them up saying Super Bowl contender, where Lions fans are going to be thinking it and be disappointed when they don't go.
I mean, to his credit, Tony Romo and I don't agree on much. I don't think that they're a Super Bowl contender and what we would think of as that term. But I mean, look at the NFC. The threshold for being a Super Bowl contender in the NFC this year is so much lower than it is for being an AFC contender. I mean, our best teams are the Saints, who are questionable at best, the 49ers, who just got off a 3-game losing streak, Seattle, who loses to bad teams and beats some good ones, but they're, kind of wishy-washy, and the Eagles, who are on a hot streak. But, we've seen the Eagles kind of fall apart in the later part of the season. So, yeah, technically in the NFC, they might be a Super Bowl contender because the NFC is just not as good as the AFC this year.
Well, let's not. At the end of the day,
Okay, wait, I have to mention the Cowboys. The Cowboys are also in that list of top NFC teams before I get eaten up in the comments by Cowboys fans. My bad, sorry.
I mean, okay. Lions, Cowboys meet in the playoffs in Detroit. Who are you taking? I'm taking the Cowboys.
Yeah, I would have to take the Cowboys there. They've got the better defense.
Seahawks, Lions in Detroit. Who are you taking? I'm taking the Seahawks. All day.
Generally, postseason Seahawks, yes.
Yeah.
Seahawks who put up 3 points this week or last week? No.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but every team has bad regular season games. The 49ers and Eagles, talent-wise, can match up with and beat anybody on any night, especially come playoff time. 49ers against anybody in the AFC, Eagles against anybody in the AFC. I truly believe that. The Lions are in that tier with the Cowboys and Seahawks, and in my opinion, the bottom of that tier.
Okay, so question. Super Bowl contender, exactly how many players from each conference or how many teams from each conference can be contenders? 2, 4, 6? They're in the top 6? You think 2?
Yeah, 2. Okay. No way in hell because the Lions aren't going to finish with the best record in the NFC, I don't think. That belongs to Niners and Eagles.
No, I'm just saying, I guess it depends on how you define the word contender. Like, if you mean, yes, technically they could go to the Super Bowl because they might make the postseason, then sure, Tony Romo, maybe they're contenders that way. But I don't think they're in the top 3 in their conference. So in that situation, no, I don't think they're a contender. But maybe he defines the word differently for himself. I don't know, Tony.
Are they the 1998 15-1 Minnesota Vikings, like Pro Football Talk said?
God, no.
All right, we got to move on. Let's go Giants, Cowboys. We don't have to spend much. Yeah, we don't have to spend much time on this. 28-0 at halftime, 49-17. Danny DeVito at quarterback. The Giants never had a shot in this game. The Cowboys are such a front runner, though, right? They have no problem beating the brakes off of bad teams, but when it comes down to playing the best teams in the conference, they struggle, and they got beat bad by the 49ers. To their credit, they played the Eagles closely, but they can't get those wins, right?
Yeah. I mean, the teams they've beaten so far, like the Chargers, who we just talked about not being that great, I mean,
Yeah.
the Rams they whooped on, but the Rams had an off week. The Patriots, a garbage team. They lost to the Cardinals, which is sad.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Cowboys are all over the place. I mean, this game, you said that it would be a repeat of week one in which the Cowboys won 40-0. They won by 32, and most of those Giants points came in garbage time. I mean, Prescott was resting by the fourth quarter. So yeah, I don't know what else we need to say about this game. Brian Dable is a hot mess. Yeah, I don't know what else there
Yeah.
is to say about this game.
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley was in a rather heated argument with the coach after a turnover on downs because he wanted to run it there. So, yeah, it seems like a mess. The Giants are a shit show, and the Cowboys did exactly what we thought they would do in this game.
Yeah. Save your energy, Saquon. You're on a terrible team that's not going anywhere. Daniel Jones is likely gone next year, and you're drafting somebody else. You're not winning shit with Tommy DeVito at quarterback. So, and for the Cowboys, they play at Carolina in Week 11. So the Cowboys should be able to beat up on some bad teams here before they play Seattle, Philly, Buffalo, Miami, Detroit, all in a row. So be ready for that.
Yeah, I love how rough their schedule is going to be. It's definitely going to show whether or not they're an actual contender or if they're only, beating those shitty teams like we've seen so far this season.
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of
Um,
Seattle, I mean, this was an interesting game. The Commanders came to town, ended up losing 26-29 in Seattle. And I mean, I think people thought this game was going to be much more one-sided.
yeah, this was actually a hard fought back and forth. Came down to the wire. Needed a Jason Myers field goal as time expired. Um, Credit to the Commanders. They seem to play better against tougher opponents like the Eagles in
Yeah.
Seattle. And good job for Seattle, but for not like no showing, right? And being able to get the win, staying mentally tough. The game didn't go the way they wanted it to. They're coming off a 37-3 ass kicking, and they stuck together and got the win. That's what I brought took away from this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen the Commanders do some interesting things against some really tough teams and then get their, hands beat off by some shitty teams.
Mhm.
So I think Seattle kind of knew what they were getting into after seeing those two very close matchups with the Eagles. But they stayed in. I mean, Geno Smith had a turnover-free day after 8 in the previous 4 games, which we were rooting for him to kind of break that streak. He did have 3 kind of stupid penalties, intentional grounding at the end of the first half, which kind of, cost them that shot at the field goal. So it could have been a bigger gap there,
Yeah.
a bit stronger of a lead. But I mean, I think Seattle pulled off the win, and the record is more important in this game than what happened on the field. We saw their running back Kenneth Walker kind of have another great game, and he's been carrying the team on days that Geno Smith has a rough day. So I think Seattle's gonna roll forward with this one and focus on some of their tougher games coming up.
Yeah, and we're gonna see who they are when they play the 49ers twice. Here still coming up, but I like what we're seeing from Seattle, and they're up and down at times, but they are very talented, and if they can get into the playoffs, they can cause some trouble for whoever they play. So I'm rooting for them. Real quick, how about Sam Howell now leading the NFL in passing yards? Neither of us think that highly of Sam Howell, so a lot of credit, in my opinion, goes to first-time rookie offensive coordinator here in Washington, Eric Bieniemy, getting the most out of Sam Howell.
I mean, I I was so impressed. I was literally speechless at some of his plays. I mean, 2 game-tying drives in the fourth quarter. I thought
Yeah.
for sure he would have messed that up, and they've fixed their O-line issues. I mean, my issues with Sam Howell in the earlier part of the season stemmed from the fact that he got sacked so much, and the O-line didn't seem to care. Like I saw
Hmm.
situations where the O-line would move away from someone running towards him. And if, you're pissing your O-line off that much, there's got to be something wrong. So I was kind of suspicious of him. I'm like, what are you doing to make them so mad? But I mean, he had a great game.
Yeah, and the O line needs to start. protecting him because now if they can look and see that he's leading the league in passing yards, and they're in a lot of these games down to the wire, protect him, and who knows, maybe you can be in a lot of these games and win a lot of these games going forward. So we're not big Sam Howell fans, but hey, keep proving us wrong, you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, maybe they can build around him and, develop him a bit more moving forward. A player who I think tried to lose the game for Washington, their cornerback Benjamin St-Juste. In the fourth quarter alone, he was flagged for pass interference on fourth down, had a face mask penalty on another fourth down, and then allowed a touchdown catch and key completions on the winning drive. Um,
Wow.
I don't know what was going on with him, but he was single-handedly trying to lose that game for them.
Yeah. Yeah, not great. And that's been a problem with the Commanders all year long is that secondary.
Yeah, awful penalties, giving
Yeah.
people a chance to stay in when they should have already been knocked out. Yeah. It was definitely a tough game for him, and I was surprised I didn't see more shit talking about him on the internet yet.
Yeah. I think I mean, I don't know. Commanders are interesting, but and then Sam Howell leading the league in passing yards is kind of fool's gold too, because I just don't think they're that good of a team. They're not a playoff team. We'll see if they can build around him more. But when you ship out Montez Sweat and Chase Young, all signs are pointing to giving up on the season. And so I don't know. They're in an interesting spot.
Yeah, so I mean, moving on to our next game, we had the Jets at the Raiders. And you and I were both pretty sure that the Jets would pull this one off. They need to protect their record. Falling to just 500 isn't great with potentially Aaron Rodgers coming back. But the Raiders pulled this one off. They won 16-12. I mean, Devontae Adams finally had a good day. He accounted for 87% of their total air yards. So it was interesting. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, it was a good game. Zach Wilson showed flashes. He kept him in it, but at the end of the day, he didn't make enough plays. He had a costly interception. Like it was what, a 4 point game, and they're driving down. They're down to like the Raiders 20-yard line, and he throws that interception to Robert Spillane, and that's what gets magnified is that he can play decent all game long, but then it's like that one crucial turnover that kills them. And despite all that, they had a Hail Mary that was close. Damn near could have been caught by Garrett Wilson, but didn't. Um, it feels like the Jets just don't have quite enough to get where they need to be for Aaron Rodgers to come back. And for the Raiders, one thing that I love about what the Raiders are doing so far, Antonio Pierce is 2-0 since taking over, and they're feeding Josh Jacobs. All year long, we were talking about Josh Jacobs hasn't been able to get going. Since firing Josh McDaniels, he's averaging over 107 rushing yards per game through 2 games, and and that's leading to wins. So keep feeding Josh Jacobs, keep rallying around Antonio Pierce. If who knows with this Raiders team, they're not that far out in a competitive division. They're right in the mix. Good win for the Raiders, and I don't know about the Jets going forward.
Yeah, I mean, their schedule isn't too tough, so maybe they can, hang in long enough to give the team a chance. I mean, but 4-5 is not great. I mean, they play the Bills next. The Bills have been kind of in a slump a little bit. And then the Dolphins come to town, followed by the Falcons, Texans. So they have three home games in a row. So that should help a little bit. But I mean, to wrap up the season, they've got Dolphins, Commanders, Browns, and Patriots. So all of these teams could be beatable, except for maybe the Browns. Just depends on if they actually show up to the game or not.
Yeah, and it really puts an emphasis on Week 11 at the Bills, and the Bills are reeling and not playing their best football, and the Jets are kind of reeling. So this is a must-win for both teams, really, because if you fall to 4-6, chances are you're not going to get back into the mix in time for Aaron Rodgers to come back. And if you're the Bills, you cannot afford to fall to 5-6. You shouldn't even be 5-5. I expect the Bills to play well enough to get the win, but who knows, right? That's an interesting game to watch.
Yeah, what's sucking for the Jets right now is they don't really have, Zach Wilson is their backup. So they don't really
Yeah,
have a backup plan, but they've gone 11 quarters without an offensive touchdown.
yeah,
So, like in most situations, your quarterback could get benched for that, but they don't have really any. He's their backup. So they need to really work out what's going on with that offense. According to Aaron Rodgers, he said a couple of fortnights a week ago, so he should be back after the next 3 weeks. So he just needs to come back to a winning record, and Zach Wilson needs to sort out whatever's going on with him because they need to start scoring touchdowns again.
yeah. And it's also, it's not just him too. Like the O line hasn't been great. Who's your wide receiver too outside of Garrett Wilson, right? So the Jets have some issues, and we'll see. Go beat the Bills in Buffalo, and you're back at 500 and believing again. But I just get the feeling like as good as that defense is, it's just not quite enough offense, and it's going to be tough unless Zach Wilson starts playing better and the team starts playing better around him as well.
Yeah, they definitely have some kinks to work out before the miraculous Aaron Rodgers return can happen.
Yeah. Let's go to Monday night, which was a great game. This is one of my favorite games of the year so far. This was both teams were playing with desperation. Both teams were hitting hard. It was a physical game. It was very hard fought and chaotic as well. It was a lot of fun to watch. What do you think?
It was absolute chaos. It was entertaining. It was another one of those really close, scrappy games. There was a couple fights on the field. It was
Yeah.
it was a mess. But it was fun to watch. There were some issues with the Broncos kicking.
Yeah.
Mishandled point after attempt. Yeah, I've seen some accusations about him using some little assistance there to stick. But it was an interesting game. It was fun to watch. It was another one of those close games that was decided by a last minute field goal, a field goal that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for a stupid 12th man on the field penalty by the Bills. And the Bills were just making some idiotic mistakes in this game. So I think that the Bills lost this more than the Broncos won it. 4 turnovers,
Yeah.
and the Broncos only scored 6 points off of those 4 turnovers total. So the Broncos weren't even trying to win it that much. How are you going to take 4 turnovers and turn it into 2 field goals? Like they should have lost that just for that. Like, come on. They're giving you the ball. Get some fucking touchdowns. So that could have been 28 points right there.
Yeah, I think that the Bills definitely gave this game away with the turnovers and the drops and the penalties. They shot themselves in the foot repeatedly. Like they didn't shoot themselves in the foot once. They shot the same foot 4 times. So good luck with that. But I'm seeing some signs of life in Denver. I really am. I thought Russell Wilson played the best game of the season in this game. Like it didn't always turn into touchdowns. There was, but he made that one throw to Cortland Sutton that was vintage Russ, where he spins around, avoids the pressure, throws it along the sideline, and a, a great catch by Cortland Sutton to drag the feet along the sideline, but perfectly placed ball. And it's the little things with Russ, the step up in the pocket and the little flip to the running back that goes for 10, 11 yards instead of getting sacked in that position. He seemed more in control and more fluid. And so I liked what I saw out of Russ. No turnovers as well. And then the defense. The defense was opportunistic. And to me, Josh Allen is also trying to force the issue. We've seen this now 3, 4, maybe 5 times this year, where it's like Josh Allen is just trying to do too much. You know what I mean?
He currently leads the leagues in interceptions, fumbled that handoff to running back James Cook in the second half. It's his 10th 3 turnover game. He's
Yeah.
now tied with my other favorite current quarterback, Baker Mayfield, for the most since 2018. I think I just like turnover machines. I mean, my first quarterback love was Brett Favre, so that makes sense. Um,
Well, you should have been a Jay Cutler fan then.
oh, I love smoking Jay Cutler. Don't think I wasn't a Jay Cutler fan just because I was a Packers fan. I loved him. He threw the ball to the Packers more than he threw it to the Bears. Why
Yeah,
wouldn't I love him?
you loved it more than I did then.
Oh, I'm sure. Every Packers fan loved Jay Cutler. We were so upset when he was gone. Uh, but yeah, it was an interesting game. I think the Bills are gonna have to work out some kinks because I mean, 5-5, Miami 6-3. You're gonna miss the playoffs if you don't work out those kinks.
Yeah, and on top of that, they fire offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey after the game, promote Joe Brady to interim OC. I was never a Ken Dorsey fan. I thought that was a big drop off to go from Brian Dable to Ken Dorsey. So maybe Joe Brady can help that offense out a little bit. And then on top of that, Stephon Diggs post game goes on IG and says, "I asked to get the ball more, and I'm done," and with a peace sign. So there's a lot of turmoil there in Buffalo. Firing coaches, star players unhappy. Josh Allen turning the ball over. Do you think the Bills can turn this around? They're supposed to be contenders, and they're 5-5, losing games they shouldn't. Uh, Not great in Buffalo. I mean, they lost to the Patriots. Now they lose to the Broncos. The Bills are your AFC team. What do you think needs to happen to turn this around?
I mean, they've got the Jets coming up, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Chargers. I
Yeah.
mean, their schedule is pretty tough. So I mean, if they can pull off three of those wins, then I guess we'll see where it comes from.
I
If
mean,
they've actually got,
there's a chance they might miss the playoffs.
hmm I
So,
mean, they deserve to with that offense passing the ball
yeah.
away. I mean, the defense tried. I mean, they limited Denver to 8 of 19 on third down conversions, 42%. That's great. But still, I mean, you can't fumble the ball and turn it over four times and expect to come out of a game with a win.
Turnovers will kill you no matter who it is. Like the Chiefs turn the ball over a bunch and they lose games they're not supposed to, right? Can happen to anybody.
Yeah, apparently that's what Denver does though. They like to play teams who they shouldn't beat, and then that team suddenly has all these turnovers and Denver pulls off a miraculous win. So that's kind of the trend we've seen the past couple weeks.
I'm probably going to frustrate you a little bit, but I'm starting to like this Broncos team.
Ugh, gross.
Like, like they're clicking. They're starting to get it going. I see no reason they might be able to beat the Vikings. They're already on a 3-game winning streak. They might be able to get to 4. They're turning the tables a little bit. A defense that was so bad early on, giving up 70 to Miami and 30 plus to Chicago, now suddenly is playing much better. Credit to Vance Joseph.
So the Vikings game will be interesting. I think they're pretty evenly matched. But I'm
Yeah,
looking down the road further. The Browns come to town.
that's
They
gonna be
play the
tough.
Texans. They go to
Yeah,
Detroit. Those three games, I think, will convince me about whether or not they're a postseason contender or not.
I'll just go ahead and say it right now. The Broncos are gonna beat the Lions in a week 15.
Okay, I'm gonna have to write that down and fact check you on that.
Gotta let Russ cook. That's all I'm saying. You gotta let Russ cook.
All right. Well, I think we need to end the podcast now because, yeah, no,
All
too
right,
much Russell Wilson love.
real quick. Week 11 Thursday night football prediction: 5-4 Bengals at the 7-3 Ravens. Two teams pissed off. Two teams desperate. Two teams that very much need a win in a very competitive AFC North. Who do you think wins this one in Baltimore?
I mean, I gotta trust the Ravens.
Me too. And
As
what does
as
that
much as
mean
I
for
would
the
as much as I
Bengals,
would
right?
love to see the Bengals pull it off, um, I just haven't seen enough life out of them to give me hope for that to happen.
It's going to be two teams on paper in the preseason that were contenders, the Bengals and the Bills sitting at 5-5 if they can't pull this one off. But I agree with you. I got to go Ravens here at home. And all that positive momentum on a 4-game winning streak that Cincy had might just evaporate very quickly.
Yeah. I think this might be a blowout.
I don't think it's a blowout. I think it's a very hard fought game. This might come down to a Justin Tucker, as time expires, game winning field goal. That's what I think. I don't think it's gonna be a blowout.
Better hope it's not over a 50-yarder because we've seen how those have gone for J Tuck this year.
Yeah, what's up with that too? It's
He's old,
interesting.
he's tired.
Man, bring back Robbie Gold. He's 40. He'll make those.
Oh, Robbie Gold. Bought him a drink once. It was funny.
That's awesome. Well, this one, we had a lot to talk about, so this one was a longer one, but appreciate you coming on. Good shit as always. Appreciate all the support, everybody. We're gonna have an interview coming up soon. Stay tuned on that. Just a matter of time. So we'll keep
Yeah.
putting up the content.
Yeah, it was great to be back on this week and to increase my lead over Alex on picks to 4. So tune back in to hear me continue to whip his ass as the season goes on.
That's gonna evaporate. Speaking of evaporation, week 11, it's going down. I'm gaining 4 on you, week 11.
That's so cute. Okay.
All right. Appreciate the love and support, guys, and have a great week. Peace out.